ICICO is the integrator of indigenous and campesino communities of Oaxaca, is how it translates to English. And they work with 12 different indigenous communities in the state of Oaxaca. Those indigenous communities are in the Sierra Norte, which is the northern mountain chain, and also in the Sierra Sur, which is the southern mountain chain. Those indigenous groups are highly autonomous. They have their own governance systems, and they have an incredible system of internal management of their natural resources. I started working with ICICO in 2005. I was starting my dissertation research. I was at the University of California, Berkeley, and the topic of my dissertation was on payment for ecosystem services. They're programs that pay people to conserve. And I arrived in Oaxaca. I had no contacts. I had no official title. I had no letters of introduction. And ICICO took me in. They really did. They helped me get established both in terms of making connections with the communities that were participating in a national payment for ecosystem services program in Mexico at that time. And they also, Carlos Marcelo Perez Gonzalez, who is the director and was the director at that time, got me entree into policymaking meetings that he was involved in at the time. That was actually establishing the rules and regulations for the National Payment for Ecosystem Services program. One of the most remarkable things I think about ICICO's story is really that they were able to connect with carbon markets and to actually sell their carbon offsets. They did that through a number of different ways. They actually, since 2000, they have received a lot of support from the federal government, from academic institutions, from foundations to help them actually do this. So they didn't do it alone. But they also were collaborating with a national level Mexican NGO called Pro Natura, and they developed their own carbon market. Pro Natura, in collaboration with ICICO, actually developed a carbon market in Mexico. They have a program called Neutralizate, which means neutralize yourself. And the process through which they sell carbon offsets, they actually connect with organizations, companies, individuals in Mexico who are interested in voluntarily offsetting their greenhouse gas emissions. And that has included the Office of the President of Mexico. It has included Chinoin, which is one of the large pharmaceutical companies, or Bimbo, which is a bakery company in Mexico. So more recently, Duke's Carbon Offsetting Initiative has purchased carbon offsets from ICICO, and $10,000 worth, which is a lot of money for those communities. And they have been working really closely with ICICO to make that happen. One of the things that the folks at the Duke Carbon Offsetting Initiative were incredibly impressed with when they were looking at the carbon offsets that were produced by ICICO is really the social and environmental co-benefits that are being produced. And that's really important. When Duke looks to offset their greenhouse gas emissions, which is what this process is trying to do, they really want to make sure that wherever they're purchasing those offsets, first of all, that it actually is sequestering carbon. And secondly, that there are significant social and environmental co-benefits. One of the really important components of ICICO's approach is really to build the capacity of the communities that they're working with, or that are really make up ICICO. So they do that in a lot of different ways. They work with the communities to actually build their capacity to manage their natural resources in ways that are sustainable. A lot of what they do revolves around natural resource zoning and planning. So thinking about the best place to do forest carbon offset management. And the best place to set aside land for biodiversity conservation. And to do that in a very participatory long-term way so that the communities can actually not only take ownership of it, but really understand those processes. They do some very specific skills-based training as well, especially around learning how to measure and monitor the carbon that's sequestered in their trees. And that's incredibly technical, and they do a beautiful job of it. A lot of the people that they're training are the youth of those communities, or sometimes women as well. They specifically try and work with people who are underemployed and undertrained. For the Nicholas School, we are continuing to take students down for these field course that I run every other year. But I'm really hoping to expand the opportunities that students have to engage with ICICO and with the communities that they work with. We're talking with Duke carbon offsetting initiatives about the possibility of developing other ways for students to interact with ICICO, whether that be through master's projects, through BAS connections, through senior theses, other ways that they can actually get students down there to conduct research with ICICO. We're also developing, in collaboration with Jennifer Swenson and John Polson here at the Nicholas School, we are in the process of working with ICICO to develop a master's project currently, and hopefully that will turn into a larger scale project to do biodiversity monitoring. So working with the communities to actually monitor the biodiversity that they have in their forest and on their land. The other thing that I've been working on with ICICO is what we're calling the Indigenous Carbon Project. And the idea would be to work with other indigenous communities in Ecuador and California and Peru to actually do exchanges, again, these intercambios, where communities that are selling carbon offsets, forest-based carbon offsets on the and various carbon markets would travel to meet each other, to see what kind of management techniques they're using, to share experiences and understand how their experience with linking with carbon markets has been similar or different, how the ways in which their indigenous identities, in which their indigenous ways of managing and understanding their relationship with the natural world can intersect with the ways in which we are envisioning through our ideas about ecosystem services and carbon offsets and greenhouse gas emissions and all that good stuff, how those things can intersect, where the conflicts might be, how they're negotiating that. And also, again, the ways in which they can intersect with the carbon markets and sell carbon offsets in ways that produce social and environmental benefits for the communities themselves.